Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Traina. Thanks for listening this week. Labor Day weekend. NFL is almost here. Great time right now to be a sports fan. We will have a big show for you next week, so make sure you tune into that. And we've had big shows recently. Nate Burleson and James Andrew Miller last week. Joe Buck 2 weeks ago. Roman Reigns, Chris Mad Dog Russo 3 weeks ago. Iron Eagle 4 weeks ago. So if you missed any of those, go into the archives and listen to them. For this week's show, we've got Ben Strauss from the Washington Post to break down the Bishop Sycamore story, the high school team that got on ESPN and had no business being on ESPN or playing a high school football game. Ben wrote a good column about it for the Washington Post, so he gives us some insight into that. We get into a couple of media things with Ben, who covers media for the Washington Post. And then big Traina Thoughts segment with Sal Licata. We get into the Mets situation with the booing. We got into J.R. Smith going back to college. We talk a lot about movies. There was a thing on Twitter this week about movies you've never seen that everyone thinks you should have seen, so we talked about that. And I read some Apple reviews that I've gotten on the SI Media podcast. If you want me to read your review, leave a review on Apple and I will read it during the Traina Thoughts segment. So we have all that on this show. So let's get right to it. First up, Ben Strauss from the Washington Post, and then Traina Thoughts right here on the SI Media podcast. All right, joining me now from the Washington Post, Ben Strauss covers media and business and NFL related items for the paper. And he's written about this insane Bishop Sycamore story that we'll get into and a couple of other things. Ben, how's it going?
Great to be here, Jimmy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I've not been into this Bishop. I know I should be, especially as a media person. I've had a hard time getting into this Bishop Sycamore story. So I was hoping you could give like an explainer to the listeners and fill in my dumb questions. Before we get to it, though, just a couple of things. Story came out. We're taping this Wednesday, September 1st. Al Leiter, John Smoltz from the MLB Network are not vaccinated. They refuse to get vaccinated, so they'll be working from a studio. I'm not sure anyone in America really cares that, they're not going to get Al Leiter in a studio to give opinions, but somehow as a country, we can hopefully move on from that devastating news. But what I do find interesting is that if John Smoltz is not vaccinated and he's supposed to be doing games with Joe Buck, how that works. They did the Field of Dreams game together, I assume, together in person. So do we know, were they kept apart? Were they together? What do we got on that?
I don't know specifically that. I did reach out to Buck's rep today, like, do you have any thoughts on this? And got a polite no comment. So whatever Joe Buck thinks about this, we don't know. I guess just why do people care about this? I think we're sort of like in this moment in America where anybody who stands up and says, like, I don't want a vaccine is news. Like any sort of prominent person, saying I don't want a vaccine is newsworthy. And I think there's probably a difference between being inside in the studio and being part of a game broadcast. You're outside, open air, definitely a different situation. And then even MLB Network, right? Their vaccination mandate applies for studio. It doesn't apply. Like Smoltz is still working, going to work a division series game for them. So there is a difference. But yeah, I think probably the person that I'm most interested in hearing in this hearing from is Buck. But, as is his right, has politely declined to weigh in.
Let me do a really gross and just cheesy plug here. You can hear Joe Buck in the archives of the SI Media podcast because he was on 2 weeks ago. But I don't think you're going to hear Joe Buck comment on this. He's not throwing a colleague under the bus. But again, John Smoltz not being in an MLB Network studio, I think, is not really anything that people care about. But he's in a small, whether you're outside or inside, and I do think if you're outside, it's a whole different story. But he's in a very small booth with Joe Buck on a week-to-week basis and will be on a day-to-day basis during the playoffs and World Series and all that. So it does seem a little selfish from that standpoint, but who knows? The Rachel Nichols story has been beaten to death. I've written about it. We've talked about it on the podcast. I don't want to rehash it at all. The only thing I just want to bring up about it, because you wrote something that I think is interesting. Obviously, it came out. ESPN pulled Rachel from NBA coverage. It's also known she has a year left on her contract. So for most people, they don't understand, okay, she's going to be there for a year, but she's not covering the NBA. You actually wrote you don't think she'll ever be on ESPN's air again. I just want to make sure you stand by that statement. That's how you think this will play. I mean, what else would they do? I thought maybe they'd use her on some long form interviews or something like that. But what do you think happens with Rachel?
I think this is, I can't remember who wrote it at one point, but, gold-plated purgatory. I think Andrew Marchand might have wrote that about Michael Smith a few years ago. I think that's what this is. I think there's a lot of legal wrangling, legal machinations, like what rights does she have, because of how that tape came about. I think that because of those legal issues in terms of, what rights to privacy does she have and sort of how that tape was disseminated in and out of the company, it is difficult for ESPN to just cut bait with her. And I think they have to, what the settlement or what the agreement seems to be is, you're not going to be on our air, but we're going to pay you. And, and then, in 2023, I think her contract is up. She, will be free to, test the market.
Yeah, because I think the interesting question here, at least for me, is I'd be fascinated to know if Turner called ESPN and Rachel Nichols agent and said, we want Rachel for this season on our NBA coverage. If she'd be able to get out of that ESPN contract, if she would be able to still get paid by ESPN and join Turner and maybe double dip. That's what, because if I'm Rachel Nichols, I understand you're getting the paycheck for a year, but the NBA season starts in a month, 6 weeks, whatever it is. Her option is Turner or nothing. If NBA Network, I guess she could do that.
Well, I think if that was available to her, I think I don't know, but my guess would be she would jump at any chance to work in some capacity.
But she still would want the ESPN money for a year that she's entitled to. That's
maybe at this point though, you'd take the work and if you're going to work for Turner, you're still getting paid pretty well. And maybe you want that work more than you want the ESPN money.
Well, I would think ESPN would offer her if Turner came and said, we want Rachel to start game 1 of the NBA season, I think ESPN would let her go. And I think ESPN would probably pay her for the year because they probably would want to avoid Rachel suing them, considering she was taped illegally and then it got out and it was a one-way state, I guess, and all that stuff. But that's more of a question for a lawyer. But,
ultimately, yes. I think the reason that they've arrived at this place where getting paid and not working is because there are all sorts of legal issues that both sides have to work through. And, basically in this, why couldn't they cut bait at any point? And I think probably because Rachel has rights, labor rights and certainly.
And contracts.
A contract and some sort of labor case to say that I had my rights violated and you're going to fire me and not pay me, that would be not easy for ESPN to do.
Correct. All right, let's move on now to the Bishop Sycamore story. I feel it's one of those weird things where everyone's into it and I'm not, and I feel left out and I feel like there's something wrong with me. I think it's because the whole concept of ESPN just airing high school football games, I'm not really comfortable with. I don't know. The whole thing just doesn't sit right with me. So maybe that's part of it. But I think I have a lot of questions here about ESPN's role in all this, which is very interesting. If you don't mind, though, if anyone's out there listening and they don't know the full story, can you give a 1-minute summary here of what this story is? And then I'll ask you a bunch of questions.
So this is wild, right? So Sunday, you on main ESPN, right? This is not ESPNU. This is not ESPN Plus. This is not ESPN The Ocho. This is main ESPN, right? And I think that makes a difference here. This is
absolutely
primetime ESPN on a Sunday, and they air a football game between two schools, right? I think when you talk about sort of how comfortable you are with this whole idea in general is really important, because to sit here and there's definitely, a sham being perpetrated here by the school, Bishop Sycamore, but there's a lot of people who are more than happy to go along with it because they benefit too, right? IMG is barely a real school. They're a made-for-TV football team, that has recruited people from around the country to play high school football and, focus on going pro. It's and regular students come and pay, tens of thousands of dollars to go to school alongside them. It's really strange. And, when we talk about what's a real high school, you're going to have real questions about whether IMG is a real high school. So this team needed a game, and a promoter in New Jersey, found this team in Ohio that was willing to play. The game starts. It's a super weird game. The team's barely running plays. They're going backwards on offense. IMG is, going through them like Swiss cheese. And in high school games, like you sometimes get these mismatched games. But the announcers on ESPN said, we're not comfortable with this. Is it right? This is a pretty big deal. They say we're not comfortable. They were worried about the safety of these players. And, they say, even before this, we were concerned, right? Like we couldn't verify some of the players and their offers. And, we've never seen anything like this. And so I think as soon as the announcers are sort of like telling viewers that something is wrong here, you've got, a lot of smoke. And then as soon as everybody, reporters, me, people in Columbus, Awful Announcing has written a ton about this. The more you learn about this school, it's not smoke. It's right. It's a 5-alarm fire that, are they educating students? Do they have a building? Is it online? There's all sorts of legal issues with, the people running the school that go back several years. And, by Tuesday, you have the governor of Ohio calling for an investigation into the school. So, I mean,
so it is a real school.
So it is recognized by the state of Ohio as a non-tax, non-charter school. So it's a fairly obscure designation, but they are recognized, and this is a recognition that has to get renewed annually. The previous iteration of Bishop Sycamore was another school run by some of the same people, had the same designation, I believe, that was eventually revoked by the Department of Education.
I'm going to skip to the last question now, though. What was the end game here for Bishop Sycamore? Just to get on ESPN? I mean, what is the point of perpetrating this fraud?
I interviewed the coach, and the guy says, you had never heard of us before this game, right? Now you know who
that's
Bishop
not good.
Sycamore is.
Yeah, but it's not good that we heard of them now.
I think there's another thing, right? I think Awful Announcing ran an interview with a former investigator for the Ohio High School State Association who said, there's a travel stipend for this team. And so if you collect the travel stipend for some of these big schools and never pay any of your bills, maybe you can pocket some of that money. But again, that's also a short-sighted thing, because at some point, you have to, the bills come due, the travel bills come due. Right. So I don't know how that's a long-term strategy. But so maybe there's like some strange short-term financial gain.
And the coach got fired. The coach got fired, right?
Coach got fired, yeah.
Right, so the coach is an idiot.
But no, I think the end result is like, this is how you become a star team or a star. Like, I'm a coach. Right. I've been on ESPN. I can recruit more players, and
right, but then he got fired.
If I think I have a real product here, which the coach seems to think that he did before he got fired when I was talking to him. Getting on ESPN is a big deal. And right, it allows you to say to new players, like, we've been on ESPN, and to tell other teams you're trying to schedule, like, we've played on ESPN. So yeah, it's sort of, building the,
it's not a good thing.
Building the stature of the school.
No, you got on ESPN and you got fired because of it, because you're an idiot. Like,
well, it didn't work.
I mean, and I will say this. Tell me if you agree with this statement. If that game is on any other channel, any other network, any other broadcast outlet, this doesn't become this had to have become a story because it was on ESPN. Where else would anyone have seen, or like, how did this even become known? Like, who's even listening to that game to hear ESPN's broadcasters say we're not comfortable with this?
I think you're right. I think you're totally right. And there was a good piece on Defector too, where it was like the crime that Bishop Sycamore committed was not being good enough at football. If they had a moderately competitive football team, these red flags about what kind of a school it was would never have been raised. And so I think you've got to look at, right, there's two things here. There's this school that like convinced everybody it was real and had a football team and had players, essentially conned everybody. But IMG was more than happy to go along with it. Paragon, this other marketing company that set up the game, was happy to go along with it. ESPN was happy to go along with it. They had help in perpetrating this because they were a useful entity. IMG needed a game. This was the only team that needed to play. ESPN had a time slot to fill, and this was the only team that was, willing to play and go on TV. And so I think you got to talk about both things. The fraud perpetrated by the school, it looks like a total sham, but all of these people were more than happy to go along with it because it served them too.
All right, let's get into the ESPN aspect of this, because just if I'm just going by the article I read that you wrote, before I read the article, I was sort of like, I sort of was like, ESPN's probably going to get killed for this. Shit happens. How nefarious were they? From reading your article, I think ESPN deserves a big hit here for two reasons. One, which we'll get into after the first point, they're going to try to no comment this and say this was not our deal. This was Paragon or whoever. You can't say no comment and don't blame us if it's on ESPN. But we'll get to that part second. The first part is this. And you did a good job with this in your article. The production people were worried before the game took place. They didn't provide, this is Sycamore now, didn't provide the headshots for the graphics, didn't provide any data for the announcers. Everyone involved in that game from the ESPN standpoint who was there, the announcers and the production crew, all had concerns, all were worried, all thought something shady was going on before kickoff. Your ESPN is way bigger than Sycamore Bishop. They're way bigger than high school football. They could have easily said, we're not doing this.
Yeah. So I don't know how high they went. Did they get to senior executives or, like how close it were,
right.
Did it get to like the most senior people at the network? I doubt it. But the people involved with the production and who were getting ready for this game, were definitely like, something is wrong here. Worried about like what's, we can't find the school.
I just want to interrupt to say one thing, because you said before, the coach and the school, all they wanted to do was get on ESPN, and then nobody from that school showed up to the production meeting, which was also in your article. I mean,
yes. No, there was real concern, both about like what the safety was going to look like, about how competitive the game was going to be. But there were a lot of red flags, that people who were going to put this game on had. I don't think they realized potentially how bad it was going to get or how big it was going to get. But there was some real concerns about what was going to happen, when this game started.
Do you know? Because I give credit, and I think it takes a lot of guts for the people in the booth. I know Anish Shroff was the play-by-play person. I don't know who the analyst was. I'm sorry. But I think they deserve a lot of credit for calling it out in real time. Because, again, I don't think ESPN looks good here at all. And I don't know if they maybe were nervous, but, in basically saying this should not be going on right now. But I give them credit. Do you know if there was any blowback for them for doing that? Blowback on them?
That I'm not sure, but I think you're right. I think they handled it probably as best they could, right? I think that, I've actually read on Twitter, there were people wondering why didn't they say anything at the top of the broadcast? And I don't think you can really do that, because there is, a slight non-zero chance that, the game does happen and, there's no disaster, and you can't really set that up. But they did as soon as the game, right? By the second quarter, it's 30-0, yeah. And they're saying, we've got real concerns here. I think there's probably some version of that booth where you've got people there just calling the game straight. And at least they've sort of told the viewers the truth and said, we're not sure about the players. We're not sure about the offers. And talked about the safety of the players too. And I don't think it was a given that the broadcast booth would do that.
I'm not asking this as a criticism. I'm asking because I'm legitimately asking. I mean, is it bad that nobody at ESPN, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, on air, not on air, nobody knew the school played 2 days before, correct?
I think ESPN didn't know. The others, the marketing company that set up the game for ESPN didn't know, right? This company, Paragon, based out of Chicago, their president, CEO, said to me and others, if we had known they played a game on Friday, we certainly would have canceled the game on Sunday. And so, like, there's a couple things here, right? Like, none of these people are looking around and thinking that somebody would have the audacity to do this, right? Like to play a game on Friday, to play a game on Sunday, to, attempt to schedule games when, there may or may not be a school connected, to the football team, right? So I talked to the one coach in the DC area who had a game scheduled with the school and then canceled it. And it was like, it's not really something that, enters your mind that somebody's calling me up to play a high school football game and they might not be a school, right? So on one level, like, who is looking for that? Right. On another level, like, how do you not do some background research at some point when you're putting together this game? Like, and the reason you don't do the background research is because they desperately needed a team to play this game. IMG needed to fill the schedule, and ESPN needed a game on TV. Paragon needed to, be the broker for ESPN. And so when there was one school, like in the entirety of the United States, that was willing to play this game, they were, more than happy to, I think, overlook some things or not to look into some things because, the game and the schedule needed to march on. Yeah.
And I want to be clear. The main culprit here is the school and the coach. I mean, they caused this mess, and I don't want this to be a bash ESPN thing because I think they will legitimately do, but you used a phrase earlier and I think it's important here. Red flags. There should have been enough red flags with this game. For me, it seems like, based on my reading of your story and seeing stuff, like, it really should not have kicked off this game.
Yeah, probably. I would say probably more than ESPN, IMG, the school that scheduled the game, is probably more culpable here than ESPN. I would say, like, a couple of years ago, they had to cancel a game with the same group of people because the school was shut down. That school was shut down by the Board of Education in Ohio. And I think The Athletic reported that there were some issues with the game, with another game that they played against the school. And so when you talk about red flags, I think there were more red flags for IMG that were, like, very clearly aware that they knew than even Paragon or ESPN, who should have done more due diligence. But IMG having to cancel a game just a couple of years ago with the same group of people seems, wild to me.
And where do you know, what do the kids think? What do the parents think about this whole mess?
I think that's probably like I think there's a part of me, or part of maybe for other people, that wants to sort of think this is funny, right? Like a school that, like, may or may not exist, like, fooled all these people and got on national TV, and there's this, scandal, and there's an aspect of it that's like, that you kind of want to laugh at and go, wow, this is, on one level it's funny, but you can't do that because there's real kids who went to the school who were, right? Like, I think Complex did an interview with somebody who alleged that they were stealing food to eat. And I talked to, a school that Bishop Sycamore tried to partner with and then had to hire a lawyer because they were trying to place kids who had been evicted from where the school, Bishop Sycamore, was putting them up, and they were going to be homeless if this other school didn't try to find homes for them. And so it's not a victimless crime here. There are real students and real, teenagers who went to this school, who, have spoken out and who have had real problems. And so I think, on one level there's, how did they get on TV and whose fault is it? And that part is a little bit funny, but, like, you have real lives at stake here. And that part is really tragic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why maybe I couldn't really get into the stories, because I didn't find it funny at all, because these are high school kids. But that's just me. And the parents, what about the parents of these kids? Are they pissed at the school? Are they pissed at the coach? Are they pissed at IMG?
I haven't spoken to any parents. Paragon. I think that, I believe that there was a press conference that the players and the coach did on Monday in Columbus, and there were some local reporters there. And at that point, they were saying, we don't care what ESPN says, and, we have real offers. And it seems like you've seen, school after school cancel with Bishop Sycamore. And I imagine that some of those players, that's another blow to them, right? Because some of them probably wanted to play football regardless of, what the educational component was. I think people were probably recruited there and went there thinking they'd have this shot to play football. And so now that's been taken away from them also. And so it's just like one thing after the next, and the loser on every front is these teenagers who, thought they were going to school or thought they'd have a football career or whatever it was they were told. They're just on the losing end of all of this.
So just to put a bow on it, wrap it up. Where does it stand today? Like, is this team playing this weekend? I know the coach was fired.
The coach was fired. The USA Today reported that. Their game on Friday is canceled. There was going to play a school from Pennsylvania. They're not going to play that game. I think a number of other schools have canceled too. So it seems, fairly unlikely that they're going to play another game.
Crazy. And, I guess ESPN will tighten up their sort of, how they partner up with companies for these high school games, I would hope.
I'm sure anybody who is going to play a high school football game on TV is going to get fairly rigorous scrutiny next week versus what they would have gotten.
Like I said, I don't
know how many schools there are like this, right? Like that are trying, that like maybe don't exist, that are trying to get on TV. I think it's I don't know like how often this would happen again, like it's
right.
It's really sort of like a wild, confluence of events or,
Again, I'm fascinated by how it started. Like somebody was home Sunday afternoon watching this high school team on ESPN. Like, why?
Watching that game, and I mean, and
on a Sunday afternoon in the summer, why?
Played recently, and I think there were some people locally in Columbus.
Well, that makes sense.
Were pretty that were aware of this team and it had asked a lot of questions before, they were on TV, and so I think that's where some of the original scrutiny started, is that you did have people in Columbus who were aware of the people running this and had, there were a number of stories about the school that predated them about, how they were.
Again, I don't want to put it on ESPN, but man, it does seem like one disaster after another over there these days. It really does. Like there's not a couple of weeks that goes by where there's not some sort of insanity at ESPN.
Their PR staff is busy these days.
Yes. They're lucky college football starting, because I think that's what they do best is college. They have great college football announcers. They show all the games. Game day is great. So at least they have that going for them right now. With they
had a nice send-off for Jackie McMullen around the horn yesterday.
Yes. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on and giving me the lowdown on this story. And just hard to believe. Your article, there were points I was reading it and I'm just like, what am I reading? What is going on here? My God. But, it's amazing. The coach, we just wanted to get on ESPN. Well, you did. You got on ESPN. So.
Yeah. But now he's getting investigated by the state of Ohio.
There you go. All right, Ben, thank you. I appreciate it. Catch him, Washington Post. Ben Strauss, thanks for coming on.
Always a pleasure, Jimmy.
All right, be well. All right, joining me now for our weekly get-together for Traina Thoughts from SNY and WFAN in New York. He's been on in mornings all week on WFAN, which has been enjoyable. Sal Licata. Sal, how are you?
Great. Thank you again for having me. It has been enjoyable to be on in the mornings. However, getting up at 4 a.m. is not something that I don't know if I could ever get used to. As soon as we're done, I'm going to take a nap.
But you did get lucky because for people who don't know, Sal's a diehard Mets fan. And Sal is also a little bit unhinged when it comes to rooting for the Mets. And you get to be on Morning Drive in New York when all hell breaks loose. That had to be great for you.
The thumbs down. Yeah, I mean, look, it's comical. The fact that the Mets again become a national story for all the wrong reasons, this time booing their fans. I actually had a caller 2 days ago, what was it, Tuesday, call me and say that it's my fault because of the videos and negativity that I put out there, whether it's on the radio or TV or social media. It's my fault. The players are booing me. It's people like me that are the problem, as if I have anything to do with it. I mean, this is what you get. Come on now.
I'm sure the Met players are all over your Instagram feed.
Oh, yeah, right. There. I do know they watch SNY because I've heard some stuff from players who used to be with the team, and then they would get on me. Or I've heard a couple of years ago, somebody would say, "Hey, Sal," anybody that would go cover the team, they come back and be, "Hey, Sal, Todd Frazier's looking for you. He's saying, where's that guy? We'll get him out here." So I was like, oh, God. I mean, these guys really, that's what they're doing, watching me on Sports Night. Go play, will you? Go worry about putting the baseball and play for once.
Was there a confrontation with Todd Frazier?
No, I never went out there, although I would have. I had him on my radio show once too, and I was like, "Hey, Todd, what are the expectations?" Like, hit like 250, 30, and 100. I didn't realize at the time he meant maybe over the course of his contract, which is 2 or 3 years, which he didn't even do, by the way. But he certainly didn't do it in year one. But anyway, I never went and met him in the clubhouse there. I stay away from that stuff. I don't want to do that. I don't care to do that.
Well, just as an outside observer, I love the anarchy this week.
Of course you do.
Yeah, of course.
The Yankees go on a great winning streak, and the Mets are a laughing stock again. Although at this
point, the Yankee streak was a
mirage. Yeah, well, I mean, they did win 13 straight. You're not happy with that?
Well, yeah, but this is the problem with the Yankees, and no one really cares. But I'll just say this quickly: this is the problem with the Yankees. It's been set up for 20 years, like World Series or bust. World Series or bust. This team will be lucky to win a playoff series. Yeah. They're not winning a World Series, they're not going to a World Series. So, 13 in a row is nice, but at the end of the day, the season's going to end how it's always been ending. So
you had your world championships there in the 90s, and that's in 2000, obviously, against the Mets. One more for good measure in 2009, and then that's been it. So,
but nothing will ever replace, the 96 to 2000 run. Like,
I was watching the highlight real quick before we move on. I was watching a highlight today somehow on Twitter. It scrolled across it. The Mattingly homer in the 95 postseason. And even I, as someone who grew up, a Met fan in the 80s, I liked Mattingly, but whatever. It was always Keith Hernandez, and I hated the Yankees in their dynasty. But that Mattingly home run, that is one of the great moments in New York sports.
I've written this before in Traina Thoughts. That is my all-time favorite call in the history of sports. It's Gary Thorne, and he screams, "Hang on to the roof," as the ball is flying out of Yankee Stadium off the bat of Donald Arthur Mattingly.
Incredible. Perfect swing, perfect moment, crowd going absolutely nuts, complete bedlam. Oh, it was an awesome moment.
Now, while the Mets were a disaster this week off the field, I want to get into this train of thoughts topic right here. On the complete opposite end of this spectrum, I wrote this. The J.R. Smith going back to college and basically tweeting his experience and his classes is one of the greatest things I've ever seen for multiple reasons. I mean, here you have a 35-year-old. I looked it up. He's worth $35 million. Does not need to be doing this. Looking to better himself. Yeah, looking to better himself, looking to, get that education. And then on top of it, providing us with like hilarious commentary. And if you didn't know this was an NBA player, it could be any college student. He's tweeting about joining a frat. He's tweeting about, taking notes poorly, the cafeteria. I started following him, and I can't get enough. It's been very enjoyable. Are you getting into this story as well?
A little bit from the outside, not to the point where I'm following him yet, but I'll see either your tweets or somebody else. And I do think the story is fascinating. And I'll tell you, it would be something that I would do. If I were rich and retired from the NBA and I had nothing better to do, you know what, go back to school, check it out, what could happen. I'm curious, though, about his eligibility. Would he be able to play basketball?
Well, his whole reason for doing this is to play golf.
Right, but
I don't know about the basketball, but he's doing this so he can join the North Carolina AT&T golf team. Yeah,
which I think is great. I think it's cool. And legally, if they have the eligibility, but if he has the eligibility for golf, couldn't it be for not that he wants to go play basketball?
I'm sure there must be rules about that because this would have been done before.
Yeah, well, right. That's probably true too. But the whole thing is, it's like Billy Madison, but with J.R. Smith and in college.
Right. Or back to school with Rodney Dangerfield is a better. Have you seen that movie?
Oh, right. Yes, I have. You're dating yourself a little bit, and maybe I am
everyone
too.
knows I'm 500 years old. Speaking of movies, Traina Thoughts topic here, number 3, after the Mets and J.R. Smith. I saw yesterday they're going to make a movie. I don't know who or where it's going to air, but there's going to be a movie made about Dennis Rodman's 48 hours in Vegas during the NBA Finals when he left the Bulls and needed to clear his head by heading to Vegas. I cannot wait for that movie.
I mean, a real movie or like a Netflix documentary? I could watch a documentary.
No, I think it's going to be a movie.
What, without Rodman telling the story? Somebody's going to be portraying Dennis
no,
Rodman?
He might be telling the story.
I mean, I don't know.
Listen,
mean, a movie, I'm into the documentary. I'm into him telling stories or firsthand accounts of it from other people who were there. A movie means somebody portraying him or acting in it. That I would not have much interest in. I don't think.
I would be into both. I would be into a documentary about his 48 hours in Vegas, and I'd be into a regular movie. Here, I don't like sports movies. Sports movies to me are hokey bullshit. So
really?
This at least.
Like none of them? You don't have one or two?
Yeah, I like Major League.
Rudy?
I like Rudy. I mean, the ultimate in hokiness. Just, I got it. An underdog's gonna come through. Thank you. There's every sports movie. An underdog comes through. Okay, got it. Thanks.
Wow.
They're all terrible. I'll give you my all-time favorite sports movie. Varsity Blues.
Oh yeah, I remember
James
that.
Van Der Beek. I Don't Want Your Life. That is my favorite. Everything else, you know what's going to happen. Oh, the team with no, players is going to beat the team with all this stuff. Okay.
You've mentioned Varsity Blues. You know which one I used to love? Two. Blue Chips when I was young and went to go see that, but more so The Program, which I thought was an excellent. I loved The Program.
Yeah, that was good. But all this Field of Dreams and Hoosiers and Rudy.
They are. I like them, but they are cheesy. I get it.
Yeah. But the Rodman thing, I will watch that, whether it's a movie, whether it's a documentary. Dennis Rodman, the 48 hours in Vegas, because that was a great part of the Last Dance there. So
right, but it was because of who was telling the stories, right? To me, that's what it was. I don't know if I needed that, necessarily acted out. Now, have you read, like, Rodman's got a bunch of books, right? Or at least one. I think it's called I Should Be Dead by Now. I have it, but I haven't read it. But have you read any of his stuff? Like, are you that interested in Rodman or just that particular story? That's it.
Just that story. Yeah, I don't really. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you're a big reader and things like that.
No. Just that's Rodman. 48 hours in Vegas. The Bulls are pissed off. The NBA Finals are going on. He's doing, God knows. I think Carmen Electra's in the mix. Like that. I'll be there.
Well, if you give me Carmen Electra and Dennis Rodman sitting down explaining to it, even if they want to act it out, I'm fine with that. As long as those two are actually in whatever it is that's going to be airing, I'll watch it.
All right. I'll watch either one. Now, speaking of movies, we're going to go on to another Train of Thoughts topic here. There was a tweet from someone, I forgot who, I apologize, a few days ago on Twitter, saying, give me 3 movies, since we're on this movie theme, give me 3 movies you haven't seen, but you should have seen, or that everyone thinks you should see, that you have never seen.
Okay.
So my 3 were Star Wars, Saving Private Ryan, and Fight Club.
Okay.
First things first. Out of those 3, have you seen all 3? Or which ones have you seen or not seen?
I've definitely seen Star Wars. I have not seen Fight Club, and I'm pretty sure I saw Saving Private Ryan.
I like how could you be pretty sure you saw Saving?
I get it. I get those war movies mixed up. I might have seen parts of it. Point is, I guess I didn't love it as much as everybody else did.
So what was interesting about it?
Who starred in that one?
You ever hear a guy called Tom Hanks?
Yeah, well, I got it mixed up with then a recent one. Maybe I haven't seen that. I probably have come across it on cable and not watched it.
So when I reveal that I've never seen any of those 3 movies, the one I got the most shit for by far was Saving Private Ryan. Oh, how can you not have seen that? The greatest first 20 minutes of any movie ever. What's wrong with it? I just have no interest. Like 0. In fact, someone from the movie company reached out to me and was like, I'll send you a copy. And I'm like, I have no interest. There is 0 chance of me sitting down watching Saving Private Ryan.
Now, are you just not into those type movies, or is that one?
Here's what I like. I like a comedy.
Right.
Or I like a drama that's sort of like relatable dialogue. Like I am not going to war, and I've never been to a war. I respect what everyone has done has done, but I haven't. So for me, it's not a relatable thing. So I'm into, like, give me something I can, like when I say I'm into dramas, I mean, I'm not into guns and bombs and blow this up and shoot this. I'm not into any of that. Go ahead.
Let me tell you, one of the great experiences that I've had with a friend in my life was when you and I went to see Bridesmaids. And right. I mean, anytime that movie's on, and it's always on TV, I always think back to you and I going to see it in the theater to a point where we were uncontrollably laughing at certain scenes in that movie.
It was Melissa McCarthy.
Oh,
Melissa
my
McCarthy.
God. I hit a bomb in Dougie's carry-on.
Yeah. They're going to fuck him up. That was the line that had me in. I almost had to leave the theater. God. The way she said that line.
I'm with you as far as comedies go. I love that, but I have evolved over the years. Like, I like watching. I talked about this actually on the morning show. I like watching foreign films. I like watching different. I don't want to do horrors. That's it. Anything outside of that,
I don't do that either. Here's the point. Here's how much I have not evolved. Here's how much I've not evolved. I still text message my friend Gennaro, who you know, every single time American Pie is on TV and I come across it. That's how much I've not evolved. But when I say I'm into, I don't want, because I know Saving Private Ryan is a drama, and I said I'm into dramas. I'm into like character driven sort of drama. I mean, maybe that, but I don't know.
I'm not sure what
I'm not explaining it well. Let me think of a drama, like a Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, right. I got you. Perfect. That's a great movie.
Right.
You've seen Good Will Hunting, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, love Good Will Hunting.
Now, let me just throw this out. Have you seen Jaws?
No.
Okay. Please, next time you have Dog on, Mad Dog Chris Russo, you have to, he will go on for 25 minutes berating you for your lack of movie intake, Jaws in particular, because he used to get on me for that. But that's a great topic to do with him.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't want to jinx myself. There's no chance in my life that I'm going to get eaten by a shark. So I have no interest in watching that movie. I like something I can relate to in some way, shape, or form.
That's great.
So give me 3 movies that, you're supposed to have seen in your life, but you have not seen.
It's hard because
don't do the explanation. Just
no. But I didn't know what list to go off of, so I looked up a couple of. You had to have seen this. Big Lebowski. I've never seen. I'm assuming that's one that other people.
That'll get you a lot of shit. But go ahead.
Napoleon Dynamite.
That's not that's not a must.
All right, and then I'm going to give you 2 more.
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. Those I know are like people.
I don't think Reservoir Dogs is something like you have. We're talking about like top, like a Goodfellas.
Well, Pulp Fiction's got to be up there. I mean,
that's another weird movie. I mean, I liked it, but it's a weird movie. It's
But you're saying that people would say, "How could you not have seen that?" I think that's. I mean, you got to give me some examples. But I looked at some of the. I had to have some kind of list to go off of. Anything after 1980, I'd say if it were a top movie, I'd probably have gone back and watched if I didn't see it at the time.
Right, so let me see if I have it right here. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Big Lebowski, Napoleon Dynamite. That's an interesting one. I'll be curious what people say.
Ones, Those are just some popular ones that I didn't think that people would get on me. How could you not have seen that?
I'll be curious about what people say if people hear this and they react.
Now, have you seen those? You've seen any of those?
I saw Pulp Fiction. I saw Napoleon Dynamite. I did not see Reservoir Dogs, and I've seen The Big Lebowski.
Okay, should I watch that Big Lebowski?
Yeah, you should.
Okay,
yeah.
They're always referenced. That's to me was why
I don't like to give people movie advice unless it's like because everyone's different. Like, people would say to me, "Oh, you've got to go see blah blah blah," and it's like, all
right,
my taste is not going to be what
Yeah.
I'm going to move on to a different topic here on Traina Thoughts. I don't want to get into a whole thing about it, but I feel like it needs to be said just because I said this a month or 2 ago that the sports world is going to be dominated when football starts by stories about who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated. It may not have been to the extreme I thought, but just as an example, today, September 1st, every story is about you've got the Belichick coming out saying stuff about the Cam Newton with the vaccine, the Jaguars and Urban Meyer's in trouble because he said the vaccine, There's a story where MLB Network, Al Leiter and John Smoltz are not on the air because, sports fans already had this whole thing where they don't want social justice or politics involved in sports. This is even more annoying because, and I know people are going to get, if you would just get the vaccines, we could avoid all of these conversations. But I'm telling you now, it is going to be a factor during the NFL season. I feel like people are burying their heads in the sand. There are going to be players, big name players, who miss games. I'm not saying there'll be the forfeits that could, but there are going to be players who miss games because of this. I don't know, this. I don't want another season dominated by COVID, but I think you're going to have this again.
I can't take anything anymore with COVID. We've all had our fill. Beyond, I thought it was going to be over in a few weeks. Back in March of 2020. Here we are talking about it again as we're getting closer and closer to 2022 somehow. So, but Belichick's comment, for example, you're saying it's going to affect the league, right? Well, to his point, just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean you're not going to get it. And if you here's why that's stupid. In the NFL, the players who have gotten COVID, it's been 7 times more players unvaccinated than vaccinated. 7. Not it's only 3 more. No, 7 times the players who have gotten COVID in the NFL during this preseason. Well, where are we at percentage-wise? Because I thought we were really high in the NFL. Wasn't it?
I don't know. But what I want to stay on track with is you're a Falcons fan. You may have a Sunday where Matt Ryan doesn't play because he has COVID.
Well, they are. By the way, they are 100%.
Oh, they're 100%.
Yeah,
that's true.
FYI. Right. It's the only thing they could do well is actually get vaccinated, which seems to be nice. 100% at something. That's
a bad example, but.
Well, but I get the point.
I'm going to factor that in when I bet the Falcons over. They're 100% vaccinated.
We got to do that. No, I know what you're saying. It's good. My thing is, and whatever side you're on of this, and I hate it's really ridiculous. But if you can still get it while you're vaccinated, then I know the symptoms aren't going to be as significant. And I understand that it would be better for everybody if most people got vaccinated. But even if you're vaccinated and you get it, you're still going to be, it's going to be impacted in the game week to week or whatever in the season.
Right. But again, though, 7 times more players who are unvaccinated are getting it.
But the league, I thought I saw they were 90 or 93%, which is an incredibly high number.
I agree.
I can't imagine baseball or any other sport being that close.
I agree. Well, baseball's a mess. What did I saw... Actually, you know where I heard this? So Chris Russo, who you mentioned, who was on the pod a few weeks ago, who Sal used to be a producer.
Oh, I forgot you had him on just a few weeks back. That's right. Yeah. I knew he was supposed to, and then he had it.
He did his Sirius XM show Monday from the U.S. Open and was talking to someone who works at the U.S. Open. And that's how much I love dog. I was actually listening to that for some reason. And only 40% of the male tennis players at the U.S. Open are vaccinated.
40%?
Meanwhile, on top of that, this is what makes it absurd. If you want to go to the U.S. Open outdoor stadium, you have 100%. To be vaccinated.
Right, exactly. And that's why there were massive lines out there I read about. It's bizarre. Yeah.
Let's move on to our last topic here for Traina Thoughts. Next week, when we do this, we will give you some NFL over-unders because Sal and I are degenerates. I can tell you some good gambling stories about Sal. Check my Twitter for last night. I asked Sal if he's going to... will you... Here's my question for you. Will you bet any college football games this Saturday or this weekend?
Probably not. Now, again, you're not factoring in. You've known me since before I was engaged, before I was married, before I just had a baby. Single Sal sitting home on a Saturday afternoon for college football. Absolutely. I'd be betting, watching the games, ordering food. However, I have to reserve that for Sundays now because I can't do both.
Okay, a couple of things. There are many married men with children who still bet, number one. It can be done. Have you scouted the board? Have you looked at the lines?
Not even once. As a matter of fact, when you texted me last night, I was like, oh, here we go again with the college football pool, which, by the way, is a great pool and it keeps me into it. But it's a lot of work trying to scout the game, scout the board, figure out the lines, which way you want to go. So, no, I have not. What are the big games? We have big games?
Well, I just wanted to... Alabama is somehow only giving 19.5 points at Miami, and everyone I know loves Miami's quarterback. I will put $9 million in that game, and when I lose it, people on the pod listening can send me tweets making fun of me. But Alabama only minus 19.5. I'm going to bet it now because I don't want it to go up. I'll tell people quickly, the college football pool that we do with Sal. My buddy Diesel organizes it. We've done it for years. The way it works, if anyone wants to copy this or if you're listening, you pick 5 games each week with the spread or the over-under. 5 games, and you make one of those. You designate one game as a best bet, and we do it by month. September. The pool starts and ends for a month. So we do it in September, October, November, and whoever has the most wins at the end of the month, everyone pays that person $50. So the most you can lose is $150.
And what's good is, to your point, even if you're having a rough start, it resets in October. So you can be out of it in September, but then everybody's on, as opposed to just continuing to build up and build up.
So I texted Sal last night and said, I'm talking to my buddy Diesel about the pool. Are you still in? He writes back, probably can't do it. And 1 minute later says, I'm in. 1 minute. Literally, if you go to my Twitter, you can see the screen cap. 1 minute it took him.
Because it is fun to do.
When you're a gambler, you're a gambler.
I know. I'm thinking, because you know what's going to happen? And this is a problem that I'm sure everybody goes through during football season. So now I got this pool that I'm in. I'm already in 2 fantasy leagues, and people ask me to do that. I got a pick 'em pool that I'm in, probably 1 or 2 of those. Then you get the knockout pools. It's not only money going out in September, that especially when you're married with kids. I mean, and me, you know me, I can be reckless at times. I will admit I have gotten carried away, which is an issue. It's not like I could do things in moderation. So now it's not like, oh yeah, $50, all right, no big deal. I'm not moderate in anything that I do. So I have the college football pool, all the fantasy stuff, it adds up, and I'm going nuts on a Saturday and a Sunday.
There's a lot to dig into here on what you said. I love the wait, what did you say right before you said moderation? Oh shit, you used the word. I can't remember now. I got distracted. But you said you had a great sentence about yourself. You said I don't know something about you can't do moderation, but you've had issues. I don't know. If you don't want to get into any gambling problems, just don't bet the NBA. That's where you get in trouble.
You gave me that advice years ago after I suffered a few bad beats, and you were right. You cannot. And I've since passed that on. Do not bet the NBA. Whatever you do, you can't do it.
The pool is fine though. Do the pool.
Harmless. It is.
Before we wrap up, I've been told it really helps if people can leave reviews on Apple. And I don't even know if anyone's still listening to the pod at this point. But if anyone can leave a review on Apple, I'm going to start reading them during the Traina Thoughts segment. Because I want creative reviews too. I mean, give me the 5 stars. Don't give me 1 star. Give me 5 stars. But if you want to write something amusing, I will be able to read it on the air here. Now, I'm going to read you a couple I've gotten recently. And we'll get you to react just if you think this person was good or creative or whatever. We got a review on August 29th. The person didn't leave a real name. It just says SXHXMX. So who knows what that means. But he wrote, "Hi, Jimmy. Podcast is on fire, just like your Yankees. Great guest. Was awesome to have Burleson on. Also, Miller was great and ordered his books on SNL and ESPN. Hopefully, Chuck is listening and we'll hear him in the near future." So what that's in reference to is I've been trying to get Barkley. He won't come on. Last week, we had Nate Burleson and Jim Miller. And this guy is like buying books. So if you're nice enough to buy a book and spend money, I'm asking you to leave a free review. I think you could do that. So that was a nice review.
Yeah, I like that one. And I saw you try. I didn't know you were trying to get Barkley. I saw you helplessly try to get The Rock again as you're tweeting.
Well, that's not. Yeah. And then we got a review here from MPEL13 from August 27th. Titles it Jimmy Traina. So I appreciate the Chris Russo reference because you've been on a roll with good guests, and I think the new Nate Burleson episode was one of your best. More like these and less Andrew Marchand. Now, don't be rude to my guests in the review. That's not nice.
That's a
and Andrew
one.
Always is a great guest.
And he's coming on quite a bit, taking his time to do so.
So when you leave the reviews, be nice to the guests, please. All right, one more. Stacey Metcalf, August 20th. Jimmy T is the man. Long Island accent and attitude works very well. Good guest, good conversation, a behind the curtain look at the media world. Could do without the WWE stuff, but it's okay. Even for someone who has very little interest in that stuff, at least it's not MMA. Anyway, great work. Keep it going. Couple of things. I will never cover MMA here, so you don't have to worry about that. I get 3 criticisms for the podcast. 1, I interrupt my guests, but that's because I'm trying to do a conversation, not Q&A. Fine. 2, no one cares about your politics, or if you hate Trump, fine. That's over and done with, so I don't care. And then 3, the WWE stuff. But I'm always going to do it.
It's weird because there is a large fan base, obviously, but it's one of those things that I guess you either love it or you don't want to have anything to do with it and just don't comprehend it as an adult who doesn't pay attention to it. So
the guy likes it mostly. I usually get criticized for you have a worse Long Island accent than me, though, I must say.
I mean, we're both New York guys. What do you want to say? You're trying to do a national podcast. At least I do New York radio. I told him, get me off this national show. I'm not a national guy. They've been doing these CBS sports shows. Come on, imagine me going over in Alabama talking.
I got to read this review from Malone37, August 13th. Easy 5-star rating. I listen to the pod just because you have the best opening music. Your opening theme music is my jam. I mean, I'd like you to listen to the pod because you're, yeah. Anyway, Traina Thoughts with you and Sal is a hit. Love that part of the pod. So
that's nice.
Okay. I hope you're into more than just the music. And we're glad you like Sal.
I think the appealing part is we're friends, so they're just hearing people who listen hear I've got
but if they think we're assholes, they're not going to be into it.
Well, we're not. I mean, you might be sometimes. You're a Twitter asshole. I mean, as I told you before,
Sal gets mad because I don't follow 9 million people on Twitter, so he thinks I'm
you're rude. If somebody follows you you think I want to follow the people I'm following? I work with some of the people. You have to add a courtesy in the business. You don't care. I respect that.
I'll follow who I want. Thank you. Here's a review from Albany resident August 12th. As a weekly listener, I think the pod is great, particularly when Marchand or Oran are on. So see, that's the thing. This guy doesn't like Marchand. This guy. And great pod, particularly when Marchand and Oran are on, and other fun guests like Mad Dog, Neil, Kyle Brandt. The conversations are loose and fun, and the Sal segment is a good addition. Also love the pop culture talk. Ditch the wrestling. God damn it. We're not ditching the wrestling, but I'm glad you guys like Sal.
Here's what you have to know. You're not going to make everybody happy. And I'm learning that the hard way. You try to please people, especially in this business, or you want everybody to listen. In your mind, you're thinking, how can anybody not like me? Like, what's the problem? We're just having fun.
I expect, I'm shocked when people do like me. It's opposite.
Right. I probably should have that way, but I'm like, how can they not like me? Like Seinfeld.
Here's a review. Pete from Fairfax. Jimmy's a straight shooter, never pulls a punch. Love the wrestling and sports media mix, and don't hate the New York focus, even though I'm a DC guy. Add horse racing, and this would be the best pod ever. And I know you're a horse. I can't get into the horses. I can't get into it.
I don't know enough to talk about. I enjoy going to the horse race in Saratoga and things like that, but I couldn't break it down for you.
Yeah. So those are some of the latest reviews.
At least you're getting reviews. That's a good thing. Negative or positive.
Well, here's the thing. I will say this. All the reviews that have come in lately have been pretty good and have been 5 stars. But, there's a lot of 1-star reviews on there from Trump people who don't like me,
Oh.
I got to review.
You to stay away from that political stuff.
Yeah, but I don't care. I don't care.
I guess.
Oh, here's I got a review from March telling me like Fauci lied.
God.
There's a review here, Trump 2024. That's the entire review. So,
you can't
I don't want to listen to.
If you get it, if you want to make people happy, you cannot do guaranteed.
Well, I can do it. No. Here's the thing. If I have something to say about something and I want to say it, I will say it. I don't care what the topic is, whether it's sports, media, wrestling, politics.
That's fair.
It's that simple.
Just with politics,
if you don't like it, don't listen.
You're automatically pissing off half the people. So I
think I've eliminated that half already over the 4 years that took place. So now we've got the good, sane, rational people that I want. That's how it works. All right, Sal, this was good.
Yeah.
It's September 1st. We're taping this. The worst 2 months of the year are over. Football is here. This is the good time. Everyone should be happy. Football is here. College this Saturday. Sal's going to be changing diapers and acts like he can't bet any games, which is ridiculous. Thursday night, we got 1 week away. It starts, the NFL, the Sundays. We have made it through the horrific summer.
Chaos begin, because that is what it is going to be for the next 20 weeks or so. Can't wait.
And we will be doing gambling picks here on this Traina Thoughts segment every week. So don't leave me a review saying you don't want the gambling picks. You're going to get them. Just leave 5 stars and say good podcast. If you could do that, love Jimmy, love Sal. All right. Sal, we'll see you next week.
Yep, talk to you later.
Thanks. All right. All right, my thanks to Ben Strauss and Sal Licata. If you've missed any recent episodes of the SI Media Podcast, they're in the archives. Check them out and subscribe. Nate Burleson and James Andrew Miller were on the pod last week. Joe Buck 2 weeks ago. Roman Reigns, Chris Mad Dog Russo 3 weeks ago. Iron Eagle at the beginning of August. All on the SI Media podcast, all in the archives. Check them out. Subscribe, rate, and review. Again, I'll read reviews during the Traina Thoughts segment going forward. And we'll see you next week. We have a big show next week. I don't want to tease the guests just in case, but should be 2 guests that you guys will definitely want to hear from. So make sure you subscribe so you get that podcast delivered to you. All right. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the Labor Day weekend. College football, NFL coming. It's all happening. So it's a good time here on the SI Media podcast. See you next week. Stay safe. Take care.